Hi, I'm Dave-Cassilo of cleveland.com, joined by Tim Bielik for our weekly boys basketball show. A lot went on this past weekend. We're here in February. We're almost down to districts and sectionals. There's only about a month left in the regular season, but we'll start things off. Big weekend of hoops. Who had the biggest victory for you?
It's got to be Walsh-Jesuit to me, what they did against St. Ignatius. Last week we came on here, talked about Lorraine Bedford, that being what I consider a signature win. I kind of consider this maybe a signature win for Walsh, not quite in the same vein as Lorraine, but, this is a game that proved that Walsh-Jesuit is a very good team. Again, they're just so good defensively. Mitch Peterson does so much for them scoring, and it's not as much of a statement as most teams have made, but it's to me a reminder that Walsh-Jesuit is going to be a team that a lot of teams are going to have a trouble playing against this week.
Oh, I know. I mean, this is a good team, Walsh-Jesuit. They're up to number 8 in our poll right now, and a team that has shown they can win the big games. Here they are. They've beaten St. Ignatius now. They played well against Western Reserve Academy. They won twice against Hoban. So anything that's been thrown at them, they've been able to do. A really talented freshman class. It seems like every single week we're talking about freshmen. One that's really come on strong lately is Dwayne Cohill, Jr. of Holy Name. How good do you think this guy can be?
I think he could be as good as, any of the freshmen around here. I mean, we heard about him throughout the preseason going into it, and so far I think he's lived up to the hype so far. And, he just does a lot in the court. And you mentioned the D freshman class. We've already seen a lot of it, with Dwayne Cohill, Yahil Hill from Cleveland Heights, and a guy I saw Friday night, Delshawn Orr of Avon, who was tremendous coming off the bench, who I believe had only played a handful of varsity games. So I think this freshman class is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, it's a good one. And, when you look at Dwayne, the thing with Holy Name is they need him to play right now, and they need him to score right now. I think there's a lot of freshmen out there who aren't really in that situation, so we might hear more about them, a year or two down the road here. But Dwayne's doing everything his team has asked for. He's one of the leading scorers in the area, and he's a player that'll be fun to watch over the next 4 years. We've got, I referenced it earlier, we've got the district seeding coming out in about 2 weeks. February 15th, we'll know everything. What team is the most a game between now and then?
It's hard to believe it's only 2 weeks away. I mean, it seemed like a week ago was Christmas, but, looking at a team I think that can make a statement, I'm going to look at Garfield Heights. I look at the Bulldogs in that blended district, with teams like Shaker Heights, Menor, and that district number 1 seed, I think, is going to come down to that game against Shaker Heights on Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
That's going to be the last word for whoever wins that game. I think is going to get that number 1 seed. And I think it's going to be important for Garfield Heights in particular because I think they've been playing very well this season.
Yeah, the game might be important. It depends because the voting will be open starting on Thursday, so it'll depend how many people hold off on their vote. I think everyone should hold off on their vote because that game might dictate it. But you also have teams like East Tech and Bedford and Menor that could possibly have a say in how things go. But I think the team that has the most to gain is Shaker. They've got a big game on Friday at Menor, a team they lost to earlier in the year, and they play st-Vincent-st-Mary next week. So those are going to be 2 tests where people are going to be looking and saying, is this the top seed? Is it not a top seed? And we'll learn a lot about them. Now, a conference that has been really, really strong this year has been the Lake Erie League. Who's the team to beat right now?
I'm going to look at Lorraine, as the team to beat right now. They obviously have shown they're as good as anybody this year with the win against Bedford last week. They've already beaten Warrensville Heights. They got to go on the road for those 2. But, I think that the conference is going to come down to that game at Bedford. If Lorraine can win that, there's no reason why they don't win the LEL this year.
Yeah, I think as long as Lorraine doesn't have an off night, they're going to get a share of the title because they're going to probably play Bedford when they're undefeated at the end of the season. But Warrensville Heights, Cleveland Heights, improving teams that they still have to play. You never know, but I still like Lorraine's chances at this point. A team that we haven't really talked about too much recently because they haven't had a lot of big games is Shaker Heights. We just talked about them a little. How good is this team?
I think they got a shot to get to Columbus. I really do. When you have probably the best player in Northeast Ohio, Nisa Ahmad, it's hard to say that, this team really has that much, low of a ceiling. But, the reality, I think, in Division I that we're seeing this year is, the balance of power is below I-70, with teams like Huber Heights Wayne, Wilmington, Gahanna Lincoln. I think the bottom of the southern part of the state is much better in Division I than the north. So I think, no matter who comes out of here, and makes it to Columbus in that Final Four, I think they're going to have a hard time winning the state title.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree that the bottom of the state is much better. I think it could be better, but I think that there is, the teams up here are beating up on each other right now. So I think that Shaker Heights could win a state title. They're a lot more balanced this year. And I think they have a good chance to get to Columbus. And once you're there, you just got to win 2 games. So I think they could do it. And if you look elsewhere, we talked about the good teams. We talk about the teams, the big players that have really stuck out this season. But every team has sort of like a glue guy, a guy that really puts it all together. So who, in your estimation, is the best glue guy in the area?
I'll give you a glue guy I like is Sean Flannery from St. Ed's. He doesn't do anything flashy. He does have a nice 3-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. But seeing him play, basically, he's the epitome of, what they call the coach's son player. Does all the the hustle plays. They have a good floor game. All the little things, the hustling. I mean, we saw in the Eds McDuffie game a week ago. He was the smallest player on the floor. Yet he would come out of the crowd with the rebound at least 3 or 4 times in a game. He always just seems to have a knack for finding the ball and being in the right spot at the right time, and he just always makes those hustle plays.
I'm going to go with a guy on Garfield Heights, Brandon Johnson. He's always battling down low. He's a Division I player. He's headed to Alabama State. He plays good defense. He gets the rebounds. When you have players like Willie Jackson, Frankie Hughes, and a couple younger players who do most of the scoring, they don't need him to score. He sort of does everything else. Mm-hmm. Now, big night on Tuesday, as usual. What's the biggest game?
I'm going to look at North Olmsted-Brecksville. It's an unranked matchup, but it's 2 teams I think that really have a shot to, make some statements and maybe earn themselves a higher seed coming up with the district seeding. And Brecksville still got a shot, I think, at the SWC title. They have one more game against Berea Mint Park, a team they've already beaten. I like what the Bees have done. They've been a little up and down, but they have some quality wins, and I think they got a shot if they beat North Olmsted to really put themselves in position to possibly win that SWC. I'm
going to go with Green versus Louisville. It's a big game. Louisville has either 1 or 2 losses. I can't remember off the top of my head. Green is undefeated. This is a very big test for Green out of conference to see if they can beat a team like that, and I'm excited to see what happens. And speaking of Green, just overall, what do you think of this team? How good are they?
I like this team. I think they bring a lot of the elements that you want to have in a quality team. They play defense. They can shoot the basketball. They have a go-to guy, a go-to scorer in Austin Marciniak. And, I think the only thing about them compared to the other undefeated teams in here, the area like St. V, Lorraine, Walsh Jesuit, they haven't really gotten the tests that you would like them to get. I mean, Walsh just beats St. Ignatius. Lorraine goes through a tough conference, and St. V plays nationally ranked teams. It seems like every other week or so. But I mean, I just want to see what Green does, against a tough district, because they're going to have a tough road in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the district is that. I don't think they need to pass the test right now because we're going to see it in districts. It's not like they're never going to play these teams. They're going to have to beat a team like Canton-Timken or Walsh Jesuit or Uniontown Lake or Massillon. There are really good teams out there, and we're going to see what happens. But we are now joined by Green coach Mark Kinsley. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Coach, it's been a really terrific year, obviously, so far. Your team has yet to lose a game. When you entered the season, was this a feeling that this was a special group?
Yeah, we had probably the best summer of any team we've had since we've been at Green this past summer. We won the wheeling shootout. We won the team camp down at West Virginia against some quality opponents from 4 and 5 different states. So coming into the year, we thought we had a chance to be very good. Undefeated, obviously I don't think any team goes in the year expecting to be undefeated, because it's hard. But our guys have really bought into what we've asked them to do, and so far we've played really well.
Coach, we just talked about Austin Marciniak. He's probably one of the best players, that most people don't know about. He's a tremendous shooter. What does he bring to the table?
Obviously, like you said, number one, his three-point shooting. Since Austin, he began playing with us as a freshman. He's a 4-year varsity player to 2. Just passed 1,000 points in his career about 10 days ago. By the end of the year, become our school's leading scorer. But he's more than a shooter. He's turned into a scorer. He can attack the basket. Probably his best attribute is shooting off the dribble at 15 to 17-foot pull-up jumper that a lot of guys can't do. But he's very adept at doing that. We also, defends and rebounds for us, so he is a complete player.
Coach, we've talked a little earlier in the season about how that early portion of the season was very difficult for you guys. You passed a couple of close tests. What did you really learn about your team in the early going?
Well, we knew coming into the year with Austin being back and Kenton Kiesler is a 3-year player for us. at the point guard that we didn't have a lot of experience at other spots. And a returning starter for us, John Davies, was hurt during football season, so he was out till after Christmas. So we were coming into the year that, we had a young team after Kenton and Austin. And, we had 2 close games early. We beat Stowe by 1 in our place, and we won at Talmadge by 3 in overtime. And getting those 2 close games in and getting a win where other guys got to experience that and be a part of that, really gave them a lot of confidence, I believe, to get to where we are now. And then from that point on, we really played outstanding basketball.
Coach, having seen your team, obviously, people that see your team know that it's a very good defensive team, a very active team defensively. You guys go for a lot of steals. Compared to some of the teams you have, where does this team stack up in terms of how good they are on defense?
Well, I think they are our best defensive team that we've ever had, just because we're able to extend the floor. And it starts with one of our seniors. You guys were talking about blue guys earlier. And in our group, that blue guy, Matt Repa, he's a senior, first year playing varsity basketball for us. He guards the other team's point guard, and the pressure that he exerts on him really helps our other 4 guys back there. And our guys have bought into playing defense this year. We were able to play 10, 11 guys, and they know if they don't defend, that they're not going to play. And, every night we've been able to rely on our defense, and it's been very good for us.
Coach, Tuesday night, really big game against Louisville. Just talk about why this is such an important game for your team.
Well, going in, we have the tournament seeding in less than 2 weeks. Louisville, they're in our blended district with us. They have 2 losses, probably the 2 best post players that we've faced all year, in Noble and Hoover. We played them this summer. It was an outstanding game in the summer. So that's going to be a big test for us. Obviously, we're going to have to hopefully turn over their guards some to give us a chance to get that win tomorrow night.
All right, Coach. Well, we appreciate the time. Good luck on Tuesday, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, so, Green, they're a team that we were talking a little beforehand. They're undefeated. You wonder a little about, how they're going to play when they play better competition, but we're going to see it on Tuesday night. They're playing a good team in Louisville. If they win that game, I'm pretty confident that they can make a deep run in that district, in a loaded district, as you said. But Green this week, they come in at number 13 in our poll. They're one of 4 undefeated teams in our poll. Green, Walsh Jesuit, who's 8, Lorraine, who's 7, and St. Vincent-St-Mary, who's number 1. When you look at the top 25, what's the biggest thing that sticks out to you this week?
The thing that sticks out is, when you look at the top 6 in particular, Garfield Heights hosts Mentor, they win by 19, they don't move anywhere. I think it's just the top 5 and the top 6 just is so static. It's so consistent. Those teams are winning. They're kind of a cut above the rest, I'd say. They're just playing good basketball. And it says something when you're a top 10 team, you beat another top 10 team, and there's no one above to move. It just shows that top group is pretty deep.
Yeah, you almost, because no one's moving, you sort of forget. St. Edward, Central Catholic, they're winning games, they're winning convincing games, but you just expect them to at this point. And what I'm most interested to see is Lorraine and Walsh Jesuit. They're teams that are undefeated, they've passed tests, and now you look, Garfield is going to play Shaker coming up, so one of those teams has to lose. Shaker's going to play St. V, so one of them is going to have to lose. You've got Eds is playing Ignatius on Friday. So I think that top 6 up there that you were talking about, I think that's going to move around eventually, but this really wasn't the week for it. So we'll take a look. But we want to close before we put the nail in the coffin on this show. Signing day is on Wednesday. Now, it's not basketball signing day, but we have a lot of good basketball talent. Who's someone that you just expect to take off once they reach the college level?
I actually kind of look at Issa Ahmad, I think, as a guy who I think is going to do really well at the college level. He's got the versatility on offense. He can defend in the post. He can block shots. He's very athletic. I just see him finding a position. I think that's the most important part, for a kid who's coming to a school, especially the forward, is finding a position, finding a role. And I feel like, Issa's is going to fit into whatever role just because there's so many things he can do that he's going to find his way on the court right away, and he's going to get playing time right away. I just don't see any way that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I was watching West Virginia, Texas Tech over the weekend, and you watch West Virginia, and you just see why Issa's going to fit in on that team. They have a lot of players that can do what he does, and they're interchangeable, and he's going to really take off. I agree. But for me, it's Carlton Bragg. I think this is a guy that he's a very, some guys are great high school players, but not that great college players. I think it's the other way around. Carlton is not going to be a guy who averages 30 points a game in high school, but I think once he reaches the college level and potentially the pro level as well, you're going to see sort of just him break out. I think even though he's so talented, he still has a long way to go with his development. And I mean, Carlton's a guy at Kansas that I think we're going to be talking about, and people across the country are going to be talking about next year. So, all right, well, that's the show this week. We have no podcast on Wednesday because so much is going on with signing day in football that it's hard to keep up. So we're going to skip the podcast Wednesday, but we'll be back here on Monday for the show. So please join us then.